Welcome to Energy Thinks, a podcast about leading in the energy future. I'm Tisha Schuler, your host and the CEO of Adamantine Energy. Season 9 is paired with the release of my new book, The Myth and the Moment, From Polarization to Progress in the New Energy Landscape. And it's finally here. You can find it on Amazon and a link in the show notes. On today's show, I speak with Toby Rice, President and CEO at EQT. He's known for his bold, optimistic take on the future of our industry, and you will hear a lot about that in our conversation today. I will have a link to Toby's bio in our show notes. I hope you'll stay connected with me. Please head to energythinks.com to learn more about our work at Adamantine or Substack to sign up for my weekly email. Both of these things are true. One thing I think you're going to find really interesting in this conversation is what wall will energy knock down for the whole world? That was kind of fun. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Toby Rice. Toby Rice, thank you so much for joining me again on the Energy Thinks podcast.
Hey, Tisha, glad to be back.
Before we dive in, you've been pretty busy in the last few weeks. I'd love to hear some of your maybe 60 seconds worth of headlines on what EQT is building right now. And it seems to me you're doing a lot of work in ways that prove that you're a credible partner on energy reliability, affordability, and lower carbon. But tell our listeners what you got cooking.
Yeah, sure. Real quick, EQT, America's natural gas champion. And every day we produce about a little bit over 8 BCF a day of gas. That's over 1 million barrels a day of energy. Our job is really simple, supply the world with the world's best energy. That means the most affordable, the most reliable, and the cleanest. We've spent the last 5 years really transforming this business into a much stronger organization. We've cut our costs by 30%. We've made our energy more reliable by increasing our productive capacity by over 50%. We've almost doubled the amount of inventory that we have during this period of time. It's going to allow us to produce energy reliably for decades. And we've made our business more profitable, doubling the profitability of this business, the free cash flow per share. And on the clean aspect, it's important to note that we are the first company of scale to achieve net zero scope 1 and 2 emissions. So we haven't forgot about that important attribute. Going forward, these past few weeks have really showed some transformative steps we've made in entering the sustainable growth phase. Meeting the AI revolution, we announced over 1.5 BCF a day of natural gas supply to power these data centers. That's enough energy to power New York City 2 times over. These are massive deals. In the last couple of weeks, we've announced a handful of LNG offtake agreements where we will be supplying the world with affordable, reliable, clean natural gas in the form of LNG. Over 5 million tons per annum is what we've signed up for. That's almost a BCF a day of natural gas. We will be throwing a ship out almost every 5 to 6 days, supplying the world. So we've been very busy, and these are all the first steps of many more opportunities to come.
There's a lot in there for a mother to love and for a shareholder to love, Toby. So I think you've really been busy. You've gotten a lot accomplished. I'm struck when my last guest was Arjun Murti, and his critique, if he had a gentle one for the industry, was that there aren't enough visionary leaders championing what oil and natural gas from the United States and North America can do for the world. And I see that you're really working in that vein. So we're going to return to that in a little bit. But first, let's talk about my new book, The Myth and the Moment. You got to read an early copy. And I'd love to hear what one idea is you'd underline for other CEOs. What do you think they should pay attention to? And was there anything in there you wanted to push me harder on?
Yeah, so I think one of the most impactful quotes you had here, Tisha, was leading, we determine history, step back, and the myth will come roaring back. I think while we maybe not have as many voices out there speaking as publicly as some of the other leaders in our industry, one thing that's for sure is this industry is full of people that are passionate about leveraging energy to make the world a better place. And so for my critique here, I would just say is what can we do? Because you get everybody riled up and really excited about meeting the moment. But what does that mean? And what are the next steps that we can all take this passion and convert it into real action? And so that's going to be different for every company. But one thing that's going to underpin every one of those action plans is bringing more energy into the world, because the more energy we bring into it, the better the world will be.
That's absolutely right. And you're it's fair to push me on that point, because as an industry, not only we can't craft the future, a future where the myth of an easy energy transition is gone forever, unless we're actually leading with a vision that's more compelling than the alternative. And so let's talk a little bit about that, because I think it's pretty clear that the myth of an easy energy transition is unraveling. But I just spent last week in Washington, D.C., among a bunch of, center lefty climate hawks. And I would say there are many arenas where there's still maybe imagination is too soft, but there's still a belief, like a real belief, that if only we had the policy, if only we had the political will, that we would have an easy energy transition. And I'm curious, do you still see the myth holding power? Do you have a lot of climate-centric stakeholders, and are they still looking at you going, why are we still using natural gas? Is that something that you're still seeing holding on in your life?
Well, I think there's been a lot of people that have been incredibly passionate about this issue, specifically the energy transition. That passion's not going to go away with the results of one election. But one thing I think that is happening, though, is people are taking a step back and actually looking at what's been promised. Solar and wind is going to be the key to free energy. Well, that's not happening. Over the last 4 years, Americans' energy bills are up over 35%. Well, if we could just get policies in place so we could deploy more of these renewables, people are understanding now they do not have the solutions that they thought they did. People are surprised when we hear people talking about, subsidies was a big topic, and what's going to happen with these subsidies. People are surprised when they talk about renewables. Sometimes some people think that these are like nascent industries that need encouragement and support and subsidies from the government. We spent over $2 trillion on renewables last year. Just think about that. And that's a big number. It's hard to wrap your head around it. So let me give you some perspective. We invested over $1.3 trillion in traditional forms of energy, like oil and gas.
Amazing. Almost double. And okay.
So for people to understand, like, hey, we need to do more. It's hard to say when you're spending 50% more than the energy that's powering 80% of the world's energy supply, traditional oil and gas. People are now starting to wake up. Maybe that's not the right solution. Maybe we don't have the solutions that we thought, but it's a great opportunity for people to recognize this, come back to the board. There are opportunities where renewables make a whole heck of a lot of sense. And I think that this is all about not just getting back to a place where we're deploying all of the above energy solutions to meet these energy needs we have. It's moving towards a more intelligent, best of the above approach. And let's put the best energy solutions where they make the most sense.
I couldn't agree more with that. And I think the interesting thing about the myth of an easy energy transition, I like the way that you don't doubt the sincerity, right, of people who have it. People are passionate about this idea of decarbonizing the energy system. And it turns out it's a lot harder than what many, many people thought. But now there's this whole group of people who've made promises. I like to think of them as sort of having gotten a little bit out over their skis. So whether those are corporate leaders, states like my home state of Colorado with net zero targets and no actual transition route to get there, I bet you encounter the problem solvers in your day-to-day work quite a bit. So this might be someone like in a blue state who's tasked with implementing, Public Utilities Commission. What's your opening move? How do you connect with a problem solver who is committed to decarbonizing or a net zero target and engage with them in a way that builds trust and rapport in you and your business?
Yeah, the first step in any of these conversations is you've got to find alignment. What do we share a common belief in? And the good news is that out of all the politicians that I've spent time talking to, all of the politicians agree. Every single one wants more affordable energy. They all want more reliable energy, and they all want cleaner energy. And that's where we're starting. But it takes time to level up and actually get to that understanding. I think some of the people that have been really pushing aggressively for a very aggressive energy transition, I think some of them have misplaced their goals. When I was in Davos at this last meeting, I think it was back in January, I was listening to Ursula talk about the energy transition. And she was saying that the successes they had, for every dollar we spend on oil and gas, we're spending $2 on renewables. And I stepped back and I said, my goodness, I didn't think that was the goal. How much more money we're spending than fossil fuels. I didn't think it was how much money we're spending on renewables in general. I didn't even think it was about lowering emissions. I thought it was always about helping people. I think this is a great opportunity for us to bring some people back to the things that really matter: lower energy bills, more reliability, and cleaner energy. And once you can get people centered on that, the solutions that we have to offer, specifically with natural gas, it's fairly easy because it's the key to energy security. It's the key to lowering global emissions. We've got an amazing track record there. We can have some really, really productive conversations, but without that common ground, it's going to feel more like a debate than a problem-solving session.
That's a really good point. The idea of aligning on helping people and reducing emissions, like even if you just stopped with those two, now affordable, reliable, we're going to find alignment on those usually. But it's a really interesting point that a lot of the objectives have gotten a little back-asswards, like we're spending more money rather than we're spending money in service of a better energy system, reduced emissions. That's a great point for just a move to reorient the conversation toward what matters. Now, I do think the problem solvers have a challenge today because they need to sell the 3 T's of energy realism to their constituency. So even when they're on board, they still have, whether it's their elected officials or their voters or maybe their shareholders in some cases, where they have to articulate that timeframes, trade-offs, truth, these are realities of expanding an energy system, transitioning an energy system, if that's what your priority is. And to do that, they need to believe in an optimistic, promising vision of the future that's also realistic. So can you talk about your vision of the future globally? You mentioned a lot of endeavors, from AI to global LNG cargoes. What's your vision of the future globally, in America, in your home state of Pennsylvania? What's the role that natural gas and EQT are going to play in creating a vision that others can get excited about?
Yeah, let's start with what I think is the core tenet of the energy transition. We want to make a world that's a better place, not only for the planet but for the people that are living on it. So let's come up with let's continue with bold ambitions, bold visions, but let's focus it on the root of what we're trying to accomplish. Let's make the world a better place for the billions living on it. So I believe that poverty is the root cause and the biggest challenge that humans are facing today. Climate is still a big deal, but if you ask the people that are struggling, they're going to say poverty is their biggest issue. The good news is we believe that the fastest, most impactful way to bring people out of poverty is to give them access to more energy. What we know is that the more energy that people use, the higher the quality of life, the more wealthy they become. And so, Tisha, what if we asked a big question? How much energy would it take to bring the world out of poverty? If we just said we can establish wealth as $50,000 GDP per capita, when we look at the charts, the correlation would tell us that in order to achieve that level of wealth, we need to give access to about 50 megawatt hours equivalent of energy per capita. Now, that is a tremendous amount of energy, and to accomplish that, we would need to triple the amount of energy that's produced and consumed in this world. All of it: renewables, nuclear, natural gas, oil, all of this energy, we're going to need to bring it to the table. That's the challenge. And I don't think we have a bigger prize than something like ending poverty. If you care about climate, guess what? Wealthier people will take better care of the environment, and obviously it's something that this industry, as the leaders that produce over 80% of the world's energy, we have got to be the leaders in providing this energy access for the world.
And you're echoing many of the things that came out of my talk last week with Arjun as well, which is, if you care about climate, then you have to care about people first, because ultimately people are always going to take care of their needs, the needs of their communities, the needs of their countries. before climate even hits the radar. So it's such a great vision. I want to return a little bit to your LNG cargoes. In the warm up, you told me a little bit about just the quantity of LNG we're talking about. Can you talk a little bit about your vision for LNG, US LNG around the world, and the deals that you've made, and how that could play out over the course of 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, so let's start with talking about the importance of LNG. What's proven over the past few years is that LNG, specifically American LNG, is the global guarantor of the world's energy security. We cannot say that enough times. It was America that really protected and stepped up to deliver energy to Europe when their supply was yanked away from Russia. And one truth that we've learned from going through that crisis is that without energy security, the world cannot transition. So American LNG is going to play a huge role in providing that energy security. It's also going to be the key to lowering global emissions. Natural gas replacing coal, which is still, surprisingly for most, but not to energy professionals. International coal is the biggest source of emissions on this planet, over 50% of emissions. So if you care about lowering emissions, you should care about replacing coal with cleaner natural gas. How big of an opportunity could this be, Tisha? We did some work and said LNG is the biggest green initiative on the planet. How much natural gas resources do we have to max out our LNG exports? And we looked at thanks to the shale revolution, we looked at all of the inventory that we've discovered but not yet produced. And we said the energy needs to be affordable and it needs to be reliable. So on the affordability part, we said take away the inventory and only use the inventory that makes sense with a $4 natural gas price. On the reliability, we said you can only grow your peak production levels to a level that you can hold flat. You have enough inventory remaining to hold it flat for over 20 years. When you put those two constraints of affordability and reliability, the amount of LNG that we can create is over 60 BCF a day now of surplus. That is the energy equivalent of adding over 10 million barrels a day to the world stage. Wow. I mean, that's like adding a Saudi Arabia. That's what we have. Now, the conversation isn't just about LNG. It's about also fueling this AI revolution. But think about this 60 BCF a day as 60 BCF a day of surplus. Our biggest challenge, we know the resources there, is can we get infrastructure built to connect it? But this is one of the most amazing opportunities I think that this country has. And EQT, as America's natural gas champion, is going to be a very vocal champion to unleash this opportunity.
I love that. Plus PS hashtag permitting reform. We need it. So I love the global guarantor, because the global guarantor of security is true. But I'm going to give some thought. You might be seeding an idea about the global guarantor of reduced emissions, right? But for US LNG cargoes. And if you imagine that the world will triple its energy because economies will insist on moving out of poverty, a lot of that's going to be coal if there's not a lot of robust natural gas. So I'm going to give some thought to that. I love the global guarantor of security, but is there also a global, is LNG the global guarantor of reduced emissions, of peaking emissions? That's an interesting idea. Okay, stay tuned. I'll be coming back with that hot take. So, before we proceed down my question list, one more thing I want to dig in on. We went from, transforming global economies. We talked about LNG and global security and emissions. Let's talk a little bit more about AI in Pennsylvania. What's your vision for what's going to happen with natural gas, AI, Pennsylvania? What do you see happening there?
All right. So here's the challenge that we've got. This is one of the most amazing opportunities that's in front of us, unleashing this AI revolution. Our job in industry is to make sure that our tech customers, which is one of the other major strategic industries that this country has, we need to make sure that our tech industry can run full throttle and not have to worry about their energy needs. That is a big challenge because the energy needs for growing power demand is going to translate from 10 to over 18 BCF a day of natural gas. The AI portion of that could be responsible up to 40% of that demand. So this is a very large opportunity. It's a very large challenge as well. Our vision for Pennsylvania is to create America's next AI hub right here in southwestern Pennsylvania. We've got a tremendous amount of energy. That's obvious. We produce in this region. This is one of the largest gas fields in the world. Over 36 BCF a day of natural gas is flowing through Appalachia. That's the energy equivalent of over 6 million barrels a day. So tremendous amount of energy right here. We've got water. We've got brownfield sites. A lot of those coal facilities that have been shut down that are connected to the grid, we can bring those back to life and plug in more environmentally friendly natural gas infrastructure. And that's exactly what's happened. Over the last couple of weeks in July, we had an Energy and Innovation Summit. And Senator McCormick and his leadership put this together. And the impact of this event cannot be overstated, Tisha. What happened here is we had, under Senator McCormick's leadership, brought the President of the United States. He brought over half a dozen cabinet members, and our fabulous Secretary of Energy, Chris Wright, was there, obviously. We had members from the tech community, from the C-suites showed up. We had over $3 trillion of capital providers come together. But what we did was even more impressive than the star list of people that showed up. Over $90 billion of investments into the AI economy were announced on that day. And just to tell you how big that is, Pennsylvania's economy is about $800 billion a year. So these announcements represented over a 10% increase in the Pennsylvania economy. It's even more exciting when you think about these investments are really the start of what's going to come in the future. EQT stepped up and announced a couple gas supply deals, over 1.5 BCF a day of natural gas to one of these legacy coal facilities, Homer City, which is going to consume over 600 million cubic feet of gas a day. That's on the east side of Pittsburgh. And then another large facility called the Bruce Mansfield site, the shipping port site. Both of these facilities are going to produce tremendous amounts of power on the east of Pittsburgh or the west of Pittsburgh. These are going to create tremendous opportunities for Pittsburgh. They're big wins for Pittsburgh. They're big wins for the Yins. So we're really happy about stepping up and signing these deals. And as exciting as these last couple months have been, when we look at our pipeline of growth opportunities, we see many more of these opportunities in the pipeline. What we're hoping to see is that cluster effect is real. And you look and see that 80% of the data centers in this country are located in Virginia. Once we get some of these large facilities plugged here in Pennsylvania, we see a tremendous opportunity for us to continue to build out. And the impact of Pennsylvania, I think it's what gets me really excited about this, not just the dollars. This is going to be, Pennsylvania and Appalachia has always been a provider of resources to this country, whether that's our coal or that's our steel or our natural gas. This is an opportunity for us to consume the product that we produce and really go full cycle on the value chain. It just means that more of the opportunities that we're creating are going to stay here and create a very vibrant economy in the future.
So this really, I think what you're describing here on the three levels, the global energy poverty, LNG for security around the world and emissions reductions, and then the AI revolution at home, and even more particularly around Pittsburgh. This is what the moment is about. Not just that the myth of an easy energy transition is dissolving, but that there's a vacuum. Something has to take its place, and that has to be replaced with vision, with action, and with a kind of sensitivity that not all stakeholders are, let's go natural gas, but they do want to have a vision that they can get behind. And so I think these are all examples where we can find those shared values and move forward. There's the one risk that I tell the industry to guard against is when we see so much optimism and runway in front of us, it's a little bit easy to forget about those who feel like they're losers right now. And I think there's a fair number of proponents of the myth of an easy energy transition right now who are feeling lost. They feel like, will we ever care about climate again? And it's tempting because oil and gas was vilified, for a good 10 years here. It's easy to be tempted to say, like, I told you so, or we won, or we're moving and leaving behind. Now, I know you, Toby, not to be that person, but I'm curious if you've had times recently where you've had to bite your tongue. And if you have any advice to our listeners, your peers, about how to navigate this world with the more sensitive stakeholders who will, in some way, shape, or form, be in power again at some point.
Yeah, I'd say, to the people that feel dejected, listen, we know how you feel. So that's the first thing. But I think the other thing that people should be excited about is, listen, at the end of the day, physics is going to win this. So if those solutions that people have championed for so long turn out to be the ultimate winners, then naturally I do believe that physics will win. But for us at EQT here, one thing that we want to make very clear is we are not taking our foot off the gas on our environmental excellence. Because while the political winds have shifted, people need to remember this: we are still in one of the greatest races ever when it comes to energy. And I don't care if you're in renewables, batteries, nuclear, natural gas, oil, coal. We are all in a race to be the first energy solution that can present the trifecta to the world: affordable, reliable, and zero carbon.
Mm-hmm.
And now I believe that with carbon capture bolted onto natural gas, that is going to be the vehicle that allows us to win that race. But the prize that will await for the winner of that race is fantastic. So when we say that we've got enough natural gas to do these massive, to add a Saudi Arabia of energy for the next 20 years, people will say, well, then what? And then, we start talking about nuclear, which is really exciting. And we're going to have natural gas for centuries. Don't get me wrong here. But, we're looking for how we can make natural gas a zero carbon solution. We think, positioning natural gas with carbon capture is going to be that answer. So there's plenty of opportunities for us to continue to chase. And we're going to keep focused on the environmental attributes. It will always be a key attribute alongside affordability and reliability.
I think that's really smart framing, this longer play of the race for zero carbon, low impact, whatever that combo that's going to make the most desirable fuel. And in a world of tripling energy, again, back to that idea, which I think is a very compelling idea, keeping that prize along with these attributes top of mind makes really good sense to me. So one of the things you mentioned is, if any of our, listeners are the myths proponents feel dejected, we know how you feel. We were on the outs for a while. We were quite vilified. Can you imagine a world where regardless of political cycles, oil and gas companies aren't the climate villain? We play a different role. Well, what would be required for that kind of reframing?
I think people just need to continue to enhance their understanding on energy. I mean, at the end of the day, people just have to get smarter about energy. And I think we take it for granted sometimes. I mean, I know growing up in Massachusetts, we don't talk about the oil and gas industry. We think it's a bunch of jet clampets running around shooting holes in the side of hills. So when people get a little bit more better understanding on energy, I think they're going to understand the great work that we do. We also need to make sure we're not taking the great work that we're doing for granted. I mean, we have to be vocal about letting people know, hey, you like AI, you like technology. It's our energy that's powering that. And I think, unfortunately, we're in a world where there's a very loud minority that hears about energy and they translate that to emissions, and emissions are bad and energy is bad. But we got to change the conversation. Energy is life. Energy is wealth. Energy is technology and prosperity. Energy is freedom. And that's a very good message for us to get excited about. And the one way that every single person in this industry can move that ball forward is by making the energy we produce more affordable, more reliable, and cleaner. And then tell people you do it. Because I tell people, if we plant a tree in the woods and nobody sees us planted, did we really plant that tree? So people will take us for granted. So we need to make sure we represent the great work we're doing ourselves. And there's definitely an opportunity for us to raise the volume on that front.
I think that's a great point. And it's a few things you mentioned. One, it's a vision. It's a vision of the future that's compelling, that's irresistible. It's a reframing of what energy is, energy as the enabler of so many things. And then it's being proud of what we do and getting out there. But the other thing that I think you didn't say explicitly, but I think that you and EQT are really good at is getting out into the world, in those conversations, in those with the Democrats, with environmental NGOs, with think tanks, with academics. Like, ultimately, we will have to pair our vision with real trust, real relationships. That's how people will ultimately be won over to these visions, is because they see that we mean it, that we mean business. And I think you're really good at that, Toby.
Yeah, and Tisha, let's ask just one big question. As we're shaping the energy systems of the future, we talk about being inclusive. Who should have a voice in saying what types of energy should be allowed in this world? I bet you if we asked the billions that are living on less electricity it takes around a fridge, let's listen to them and let's hear what they have to say, and let's make those energy solutions available. And I think what you're going to hear is that they want the most cost-effective, reliable energy solution, because that is the only type of energy that is going to bring them out of poverty, enable industry and jobs, and allow their economies to start working, so they can have a lifestyle that is equivalent to what we're enjoying here in the United States.
That's absolutely right. Sometimes people will say to me, well, Tisha, you don't support coal, do you? You say you're all of the above or best of the above. And I say, if you're cooking over dung, I am pro coal for you, right? Everyone should be moving up the energy ladder. And those options should continue to become better and better. I couldn't agree more. Well, on that note, Toby, a final question for you that I ask all my guests: what are you most optimistic about?
Oh my goodness. There's been a lot of things these past few years that have been upsetting, and I think it's easy to dwell on those things. I mean, the crisis in Ukraine is being one thing that's been tough. We just got through COVID. That was a tough experience. And I step forward and I look at AI. That's exciting, but that's probably not all going to be sunshine and rainbows. Probably going to be some problems there. So how are these negative things make me excited? We need more human capital in this world doing great work. And what gets me excited is knowing, and it's not great that this is the way it is, but we have 6 billion people trapped behind a wall of poverty. And we can knock that wall down with energy abundance. And so what gets me exciting is knowing that we're working in an industry that has the wrecking ball to knock down the wall of poverty and unleash the potential of 6 billion humans living on this planet. And Tisha, you know what? I bet you in that 6 billion people, I bet you there's another Tisha Schuller in there. I bet you there's another Elon Musk. Mm-hmm. And these people that can add to the brain pool and help make humanity more prosperous in the future. So when you think about AI, that's going to hit, getting people energy is the first step. The education that AI can bring, the economies that AI can bring, I think now we have the economic solution to bolt onto that energy. So, I mean, this is a 1 + 1 = a zillion. And we're incredibly excited about bringing more energy access to all corners of the world.
Awesome. Keep doing what you're doing. Thank you so much for joining me on the Energy Thinks podcast, Toby.
All right. Thanks, Tisha.
That's our episode for today. Thanks so much to our listeners for giving me an excuse to have such great conversations and for your continued engagement. I would like to thank Toby also for joining me. One thing that is going to stay with me and I'm going to work on is this idea of U.S. LNG being actually a guarantor, a securing emissions reductions or peak emissions. I think that might be a really interesting idea. Like, could we ever achieve peak emissions without LNG exports? That's interesting. I bet we could figure that out. If you have ideas about that, shoot me a note. Please take a moment and wherever you listen, review Energy Thinks. It will help others in the industry find us. For more on our work at Adamantine, please visit us at energythinks.com. While you're there, you can sign up for my weekly newsletter. Both of these things are true, either there or on Substack. I'd like to thank my colleague, Kayla Chives, for making the Energy Thinks podcast possible. I hope you will check out, I had a piece placed in The Hill, and I hope you'll check that out as well. We will link that also in the show notes. Until next time, I'm Tisha Schuller, wishing you and yours happiness, prosperity, and good health.